Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I'm speaking with badass Business for Unicorns coach, Ben Pickard, and we are talking about the nuts and bolts of a discovery call, which is typically the first step in your sales process. We walk through our script and template for this conversation. And so if you want to get better at discovery calls with your leads, this is a great episode for you. Keep listening. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. And he's back again. It's Ben Pickard. Welcome back to the podcast, friend.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited we get to have another conversation. But before we dive into what we're going to talk about today, I do want to take a quick moment to give a shout out to this free resource we have on our website right now. We know that as a gym owner, life can be very overwhelming. You're juggling a lot of hats, trying to build systems in your business thoughtfully, and it's hard to know what to focus on next. So we developed this thing called the Ultimate Gym Owner Report Card, and it's a free tool. It's a self-assessment on our website that you can go download right now, and it helps you organize your thoughts and figure out what system you want to work on next in the business. We use it a lot with Unicorn Society members. Ben, when we use it with folks, that are in Unicorn Society, what are some of the benefits you've noticed?
Well, aside from the obvious of helping you make more money and save time, the biggest one is helping people get out of their own head. And rather than have a menu of 17 things they need to finish in the next 17 seconds, it's do these next things first because they're going to be the most impactful.
Yeah, well said. It helps just really prioritize what is the next big thing I'm going to focus on and let everything else fade into the background. And so if that sounds useful to you, dear listener, go to our website, businessforunicorns.com right now. And on the homepage, you can download our free tool. And I hope you have fun using it because we have fun using it all the time. Well, let's dive into today's topic. When Ben was last on the podcast, if you haven't listened to that episode, go listen to it. We talked a little bit about lead follow-up. And so we wanted to kind of keep pulling that string and continue the conversation to talk about the first step, typically when you get a warm or hot lead, is to get them onto a discovery call. So we're going to talk about discovery calls today and some best practices around what that call looks like. Do you want to start, Ben, by just walking people through what the heck is a discovery call? What's the purpose of having one? And where does it fit into this timeline we're going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So a discovery call is your next step after following up with your lead. Because as a friendly reminder, when somebody says, hey, I'm potentially interested in your service, what do you charge through your website contact form? They're not ready to sign up yet. They're not ready for marriage. You got to do a little bit of dating. And the best way the equivalent of taking them out for coffee or something really low barrier is get them on a discovery call so you can learn more about them. They can learn more about you and you can see, are they someone you want to work with? But also, do they actually want to come work with you at your gym?
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's totally like a first date. It's like we're not even really going on a date. It's just coffee. it's during the day. It's not a full meal. You don't even have to order food if you don't want. We're just going to have a beverage together to see if we actually like talking to each other. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So it's often the first step that you're asking someone to take once they express interest. So let's just kind of go through the whole process. So even before you get someone on a discovery call, what are some things people should do when they're kind of preparing to get on that call with someone? How do people get into the right zone to be having these kind of calls?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really important question. And it's funny because this was one of my favorite parts of running a gym. Like I got into fitness because I like helping people and I like working with people. So before a discovery call, it's really important to be like mentally, physically, and emotionally in a good state to serve. At least that's what I told myself. I put on my like servant leadership hat is what can I do for this person? How can I really get to know them? So general best practice would be one, tactically like review anything that they've already told you. If they said they have knee pain in the contact form, you should have that handy. You should also have a place to make notes because you're going to need to make notes. But aside from that, I always take a few minutes to be standing when I do the calls. Like pro tip, have a standing desk if you can. I always want to be in that energetic state of how can I serve them? And most importantly, I am always smiling. Mm-hmm. I have to there's something about getting yourself in the state of I am excited to talk to this person that I swear they pick up on that through the phone. And it makes the calls go drastically better.
Yeah. There's like a brightness to someone's tone when they're like in a good mood, happy to talk to you, stoked to be having the conversation, right? There's a kind of excitement in energy in the air, and people can totally tell that in your tone, whether it's phone or video chat. I think it really makes a big difference to be in that space. Yeah, those are great tips. So review any information you have, get in the right kind of mindset to be in a mode to serve. Great tips. So maybe just kind of walk us through a big picture, like how long is this call? What are the kind of things you're doing? What's the agenda for a discovery call?
Yeah, in a roughly perfect world, this wouldn't go any more than about 15 minutes. I could be convinced arguments for less or more, depending on your funnel. But generally speaking, the first step is always kind of breaking the ice and setting expectations. Hey, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
thanks for hopping on the phone today. I'm really excited to chat with you. Just so you know, we got about 15 minutes today. So I'm going to have a few questions for you about what you're looking for in a gym. You're going to ask me a few questions. I'll tell you what we're about. And if it seems like a good fit, we'll move to the next step, which is a consultation. Does that sound good to you? So then the prospect knows, oh, this is what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
I've It's kind of like a bonus tip if it fits your funnel. Something I've used, which really helps a lot because everyone likes to buy, but nobody likes to be sold to, is even outright saying, just so you know, this is not a sales call. Even if you love us, we do not take money over the phone. This is really just a chat to see if we're a good fit to work together.
Yeah, I love that. It really helps de-escalate any anxiety people have about being on quote a sales call, right? And I think this expectation setting at the beginning of the call is so critical because it tells people that you're in charge, you're an expert, you're walking them through a process that you use all the time, and it helps you lead with confidence as opposed to getting on the call and what I see a lot of people do, which I think is terrible, which is just like you let them ask a bunch of questions, you let them drive the conversation, and if you do, the first thing they're going to ask is, well, just tell me how much you cost. Right? Tell me how much you cost. But I think what you're doing is you're grabbing the reins, like, here's how today is going to work. I'm going to say some stuff. You're going to say some stuff. And I love how at the end, when you were modeling it out there, you even got like a little small yes at the end. Does that sound good to you? Right?
Yes.
Does that make sense to you? And that small yes, is a great best practice when it comes to sales. You can say yes a lot. Helps make sure that they're continuing to commit so you can hopefully get a big yes at the end. Okay, cool. So they set expectations at the beginning of the call. Then what happens?
Then the next step is if there's any housekeeping that needs to be done. So, for instance, if the next step after your discovery call is to move to something like a free or like super low price trial, maybe it's like 2 weeks free kind of thing, you might need to like have a credit card file on file. Highly recommended. Give out free stuff without a credit card, nobody shows up. Give out free stuff with a credit card, your show rates will be higher. Your system might require you to have, first name, last name, email, phone number, address. So you're kind of just tackling like, hey, Michael, before we jump in, I just have a couple like housekeeping things. Could I get your address? And I got your first name, but could I get your last name? And I only got your phone number, but not your email. You're just getting some of that out of the way. And that's going to vary business to business depending on what is your next step and what are the requirements of the software you're using.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think just getting that out of the way with the context for people like, hey, I'm creating an account for you in our system so we can stay in touch. I'm going to assume our conversation today is going to go well and you're going to come try us out. And so I'm going to put all this information in here just to make sure that we can stay in touch and you have everything at your fingertips. And for some of you, I've also seen people do this towards the end of the conversation once they're moving on to a next step. I don't think it really matters one way or the other, but I think, in our template, we like putting it up front. So in part, no matter whatever happens in the conversation, you've captured as much contact information about this person that you can. So I think doing it up front, I think can really have good benefits. Yeah, so keep on going. So we set expectations, we gather any contact information to make sure we can create a profile for them in our system. Then what?
Now is the fun part. This is where we're going to be peeling the onion, as we like to say, or you're asking powerful conversations. So you've probably got anywhere from 2 to 4 questions, depending on how much the person on the other end of the phone likes to chat. But these are questions like, what do you want to accomplish working together? What have you tried before in the past? Why do you think that might not have worked for you? If I could wave a magic wand and we decided to work together for a year, what are the things you'd like to accomplish in order to feel like our time together was well spent? This is where you're really putting on your like coaching hat. I truly believe that good coaching and good sales are the same thing. So you're really putting on the like, how do I really get to know this person? What are their like hopes? What are their desires? What are their greatest fears? How can I serve this human being? And what are some of the obstacles we might meet along the way? So if anyone's taken coaching conversations yet, very similar questions. If you haven't, it's really just like you're asking open-ended questions in the spirit of them sharing more and more powerful things with you, which you can then use as ammunition later on in the call to help, if you're a good fit for their needs, to help serve their needs. Hey,
Yeah.
heard you got back pain and knee pain, and those are two of the things that are holding you back from your strength and weight loss goals. Just want to let you know, like 50% of our clients have back and knee pain, and we actually have good referral partnerships with other physical therapists in the area. So I know that this is a big obstacle to you, but this is actually our bread and butter, and I think we can really help.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's so many great tips in that, Ben, right. Which is, have really good, a handful, 2, 3, maybe 4 predetermined, really good, open-ended, powerful questions. Right. And then I think maybe the most important thing I would add to that is, and when people respond to those open-ended questions, let them talk and write down what they say. Because later you're going to repeat those things back to them and use it as leverage to get them to move to the next step. Right. And I think all too often people think, oh, yeah, I've done this a million times. I'll just remember it. You won't remember it. You have to take notes during these calls to write down in their own words, what did they say to you? And when you can reflect back their challenges, their opportunities, their goals, their dreams, their issues in their own words, as Ben said, it's going to be much more powerful. So I think, take some good notes, my friend. It's really, really important. Okay, so let me just go back and say we set expectations for the call. We did some housekeeping, got their contact information. We started to kind of peel the onion, ask them lots of good questions. We're going to start repeating back those answers to those questions, letting them know that we heard them and that we listened. Where do you go from there?
Yeah. Well, the next step is move to the next step, move to action. So this is where you're going to, after you've probed and listened and reflected and validated, you're going to move towards what is the next step for your business. So this is either a very cheap or free trial, or for a lot of us, the next step is going to be actually a strategy session or a consultation. So it's going to be actually getting that booked. Hey, Michael, based on what we talked about today, it sounds like this is a really good fit. The next step is to get your consultation booked. In that, it's going to be about 60 minutes, and we're going to dive into a little bit deeper what we talked about today, talk about all of our pricing options to make sure we've got the right fit for you, and get all your sessions booked. So for that consultation, I've got A and B. Which one do you prefer?
Yeah, great. So we've already got clear on their goals. We already validated back to them that we can help them achieve those goals. Now we're saying the next step is to come in, right? To actually come into the gym, and whether it's a consultation or a free or a cheap trial or low barrier offer, that you're helping them get set up on the next step. And I think, Ben, you modeled it really beautifully, which is just like, here are the 2 times. Which one is it? We're not saying plot your calendar. When are you free next week? Like we're really driving them to a next step with confidence. And I think that the way you said that did that really, really well. It's often at this point in the conversation where people will start to have some objections, or maybe some friction in having them move forward. Well, I'm not really ready yet. Tell me your rates. Or I'm not really ready yet. Explain to me more about the training you do. Or I'm not sure I can really start for a few months. So how do you handle some objections at this point?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
So provided that you have an avatar of your ideal client and who do you serve, I do think this is the point in the conversation where it's appropriate for you to have a very well practiced, very well role played pitch. And it's not going to be a pitch to get them, again, to sign up for your 12-month commitment. You're not asking for marriage on the coffee date or they're running and screaming. But for instance, what are the obstacles that other people like them have faced? And you're kind of smushing all of those past favorite clients you've had into one person. And you know that these are the top 3 obstacles you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
And admittedly, it's been a long time since I did a sales conversation for a fitness business. But this is where I would have that pitch to be like, here, at Lean Strong Fitness, this is what we do. Here's who we help. Here's how we help them. And I'll always be including some of what they said as their objections and goals as well. So if they said they want to lose 20 pounds of fat, I'll be like, we help people lose fat, up to 20 pounds, sometimes even more. But it's very specific to them, but you're having a little bit of a pitch. And the reason I say that is by having that, it can help you're anticipating their objections and getting some of them out of the way beforehand.
Yeah.
When it comes to pricing, I don't like telling people price until you get to the consultation, because I'm a believer that until you've had a chance to truly build value, any price is too much. But we also know that there's nothing worse than being like, hey, Michael, how much does this cost? Dodge the question. I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but how much does this cost? Dodge the question. I'm just like, what the fuck is this shit am I signing up for?
Yeah.
So my kind of rule of thumb is on the third time they ask, I will give them our rates vary because this is totally custom based on your goals and needs. We're actually going to dive into that. All of our pricing is completely transparent, but to give you a ballpark, we start at X dollars per week. Does that
Yeah.
fit your budget?
I think it's great. I think it's a great way. I would even say, I don't even know you need to wait till the third time they ask. You can say that the first time. I think if because the last thing you want to people to think is that we're being shifty, and it's really just like that. We're going to get to that information. We're going to share all that to you, and we'll start by telling me what's your budget, right? And if they share their budget, say, okay, well, actually, we have things in that price range. In fact, our things start at X number of dollars per month. That could be useful to pre-qualify at this point. So I think I love the idea. And just zooming back out, I want to repeat what you said earlier, which is most of you listening to this, what the most common objections are. And for most gyms, it's time, money, and fit, right? Like either don't know if I'm going to have the time to do this, I don't know if I can afford it, or I don't know if I'll be the right fit for the kind of thing you do. And so, yours might be slightly different based on your avatar. But I think, to Ben's point, I think it was really great advice to say, go figure out what your top three are and have rebuttal, right? Have a way to have that conversation and bring some evidence to the table, right? If they're worried about having time, like, well, how much time do you have? Right? Do a little digging and then share some examples. Okay, we have a lot of people who are also nighttime nurses, just like you, who need to sleep a lot during the day. And what they tend to do is they come in our early afternoon classes at 4:30 before they have their meal and go to their nighttime nursing, right? Or people come with this kind of budget. Yeah, we have memberships in that range. What they tend to do is larger classes because they're more affordable for a visit. You get what I'm saying. I think it was great advice. Is go determine in advance what your most common objections are, and then bring some evidence to the conversation to show that you actually help people with those same kinds of challenges, with those same objections. And I think you can use real life clients as examples to help them overcome any fears they have about time, money, fit, or any
Yes.
other objection you can think of. Yeah. Well, let's talk about what does it look like for this conversation to have like a great ending? Like, how do you wrap this conversation up in a way that makes them leave feeling like I was really taken care of, and I feel confident putting my health in this person's hands?
Yeah, wonderful question. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because the the spirit and the feeling that I'm trying to elicit over the course of a discovery call is to get them excited and enthusiastic to take the next step with us. Because again, at
Yeah.
this point, they haven't given us any money. They at most have committed to like a free thing, but I want them to feel like this could be as powerful for them as I know, and listeners, that it can be for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of it is setting that intention, which comes from the beginning, that you're carrying that through the conversation, that people will pick up on that. But then there's also some really important tactical stuff that needs to be done. I always like asking, do you have any other questions for me? I want them to feel taken care of. It should feel like a casual conversation, but still driven by an agenda. The person on the other side of the phone shouldn't know that you're actually walking them through a checklist. And then there's also some important pieces to clean up. Like if you're booked their consultation, be like, hey, Michael, we've got you booked for Tuesdays at 4 p.m. I'm going to get you in the system as soon as we hang out on the phone today. You're going to get a confirmation email of those times with a link to book it in your calendar. If for some reason you don't get that and it goes to spam, here's my number. Please give me a shout. And then you'll also get a couple reminder texts beforehand. Here's what you need to prepare in order for that. But I'm giving them some of the like if I was putting myself in somebody's shoes who hasn't gone to the gym for a while, I'm probably nervous as hell being on this call. I might have even thought about having this call for like 2 years and didn't take any action due to guilt or shame or fear or all sorts of other feelings. So I want to really make sure that they have, hey, here's your travel checklist. Here's what you're going to need. Remember to show up to the airport this many hours in advance. Here's the gate you're going to go to. And then on the back end, do all that shit promptly.
Yeah.
Do not forget and put them in the system 2 days later. And then they're like, this person seemed like everything was great, but I didn't get the shit. Like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. I think there's so many great takeaways there for listeners, right? Is to make sure all their questions are answered, that they're all, any questions they had or curiosities they had have been exhausted, right, by you. And then do a really great recap to say, here's what your journey is going to look like next. And I love all the examples you gave of here's the emails you're going to get, the texts you're going to get. You might even go so far as like, let me tell you how about parking works at our gym, right? Or, anything at all that makes it easy. There's construction happening. There's going to be a detour on the way to the gym. Like anything anything you need to tell them about what their first experience coming to you is going to look like helps make sure that they can picture themselves doing it. Right? When you paint a vivid picture, it really helps them see themselves walking into your gym. And then, of course, you're going to send a million fucking reminders because everyone's life is busy and everyone needs that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Our
That's
gym,
great.
we actually do have construction in our area where I live. We have winter season and we have construction season. It's unbelievable. And our
Yeah.
gym to get to our parking lot is a little bit weird. So we actually included in the confirmation email, like, here's what to look for as you're coming in. Go here, go here, go here, and stuff like that. That I'm just thinking, how can I remove every possible obstacle to make this person's journey with us as easy as possible? And that's where you've got some freedom to get creative and have fun with it a little bit too.
Yeah, good for you. Well, I think you did a great job of walking around through this. This was really awesome. I think super valuable conversation. If there's anything else you want to say about discovery calls we didn't touch on?
Yes. None of this, listening to this podcast, dear listeners, probably sounds like rocket science. You've probably done a million consultations and you have your version of peeling the onion. You know how your software works. And the piece I'd want to instill in you is, like, truly practice this, because you'll come up with some lines that aren't like cheesy or slimy sales, but like are true to, how your best customers have described your gym. And the difference between someone who's good at this and someone who's new is, I think, making it just sound real and genuine. And that only comes from getting your reps in. And I know how awkward it is to practice in front of the mirror, but please practice in front of the mirror. Practice with your mom, practice with your dog, practice with team members at your gym, but really get good at getting your reps in for this so that when you do have somebody on the phone, you can give them that feeling of like excitement and like this could actually make a huge difference for them, because I know everyone listening to this believes in fitness. That's probably the main reason we opened gym. And if you don't get really good at this, you don't have an opportunity to show all these prospective people what makes you truly different.
Yeah. Beautifully said, my friend. I think that's exactly it. If we want to help people and do the work we want to do, we have to help them get in our doors. And sometimes this is what it looks like to inspire people to get out of their own way and invest in themselves. So I think those are all really great. I'll add one more thing is, practice, practice, practice. And also videotape yourself, audio record yourself. We did that a little bit on our most recent Unicorn Society retreat. We videoed people having conversations, and watching yourself is awkward AF. And you will have just as good as feedback for yourself as anyone else would ever give you. And so it's a great way to get the reps in. Thanks so much for this, Ben. I really appreciate it. This was a great, and maybe our next conversation, we'll just kind of continue pulling this thread and offer the next a walkthrough of a consultation next. So stay tuned for that, dear listeners. Well, let's leave it there. Friends, if you found this episode valuable, please, please, please go leave us a review. Go leave us 5 stars and give us a review anywhere you listen, ideally on Apple Music, but any platform, because it's how we find more listeners just like you. And so thanks in advance for leaving us a kick-ass review. And email us. Let us know what you want us to talk about or who you want us to talk to next on the podcast. It's just our first names, Michael and Ben, at businessunicorns.com.